Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 1998 Represent. This episode, we're talking about A Night at the Roxbury, based on the Saturday Night Live skit with Chris Kattan and Will Ferrell. Let's get my notes here. So this was released October 2nd, 1998. I remember seeing this kind of on a whim. I remember I was in I think it was an environmental studies class, and somebody was going to it, and we decided to check it out. This was kind of after, it was in one of the smaller screens at this theater, because I think the theater initially only had two screens, and like a year before this came out, I think it was like 97, they added in two additional smaller screens, and this was actually showing on one of the smaller screens. So we went to see it. I wasn't super familiar with the skit from Saturday Night Live. I think I had seen like one of them at one point, but my friend said it would be funny, so we went to see it, and I actually absolutely love this movie. It's one of my favorite comedies. It's like only like an hour and a half long. It's like really quick. They basically, like, it's like, how do you turn this concept into a movie, and they actually do a pretty good job of kind of like fleshing out these characters and giving them like a story that is actually works for a movie. Let's see, like I said, only an hour and a half long. This is like a comfort food movie for me. I remember I used to have this movie and like Office Space and Wild Things on like an old iPod Classic, and I would just listen to those while I was at work. And I just like just the dialogue and the music in this, and Office Space too, where it's just like it's good to just always watch it, but it's like it made my workday easier just by even just listening to the movie. Um, so stars Chris Kattan, Will Ferrell. You have Molly Shannon in there, Dan Hedaya, Lonnie Anderson. I think it's you have also like Colin Quinn, a bunch of other like kind of people that are like familiar with Saturday Night Live. It's a SNL production. Some weird stuff that happened with this movie. I remember reading in Chris Kattan's memoir that Lorne Michaels kind of pressured him into essentially sleeping with the person that they wanted to direct it initially, who was Amy Heckerling, who had previously directed a bunch of other stuff, but most notably prior to this had directed Clueless. And I think Lorne Michaels wanted her to direct it, and he pressured Chris Kattan into like sleeping with her to kind of ensure that she would stay on the production. She ended up not directing it. She still helped produce it though. But unfortunately, that led to a huge rift between Will Ferrell and Chris Kattan, where they basically were. Will Ferrell was basically just like, "I'm not your friend anymore because of this situation." Even though I think it's kind of not great because Lord Michaels kind of pressured Chris Kattan into it, and I think Will Ferrell was more just upset that like Chris Kattan didn't tell him about it or something like that. I don't really remember. It's been a while since I read the memoir. I think it was like his book came out in 2019. It was called Baby Don't Hurt Me, and it's his autobiography. It's pretty interesting to check out. If you, I listened to the audiobook when it came out a few years ago. Um, so unfortunately, in their relationship, kind of, I don't think it's ever like recovered. I remember in the book, he Chris Kattan had called Will a bunch of times, like over like a break, like a SNL break or something, and he was like, "Hey, why didn't you return my calls?" And Will Ferrell's like, "Oh yeah, we're not friends anymore, but I'll still work with you on the show, but we're aside from that, that's all we're gonna do. We're not gonna be friends or anything like that." So kind of not great there. Just the jokes in this movie and the cast are like the overall cast is great. Some jokes I remember writing down. One of my favorites is the protein bar joke. So we're in a gym and one guy's like, "Hey, do you want a power bar?" And like the other one pulls out and be like, "No, I got a nitro bar." And he's like, "How about this bar?" And Will Ferrell's like, "No, I got a muscle triplicator bar." This is kind of at the time where like all those kind of like health bars were starting to kind of just kind of like saturate the market. I remember like seeing power bars everywhere. I mean, they're still around, but like I think back then there was definitely like a huge push on just kind of like energy bars for like training and stuff like that. Um, one of the jokes in the movie is that Richard Grieco is like constantly like getting involved with stuff. So like he shows up at the club and then he crashes his car into their van and he has to get them into the club. And he shows up at their wedding and it kind of it pulls a lot of great stuff from like 80s, like late 70s, early 80s, like pop culture. There's like a line about like Mount St. Helens because like he's like, "Why are you Mount St. Helensing on me, man? What's going on?" And then there's a whole thing of like Joni loves Chachi and stuff like that. There's a bunch of other jokes in there that are kind of like along that time period. I remember there's a joke about Jim Carrey because the guy who owns the club, he's like, I gotta go say hello to Jim Carrey because Jim Carrey was previously in one of the Roxbury skits on SNL. I think it was that. Let's see what else we have. So one other interesting thing about this movie, it's kind of like a weird take on like a romantic comedy almost. So if you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie. But there's spoilers. These two ladies like start hanging out with them because they think that they have a lot of money because they're talking to the owner of the club, and they basically have a relationship. They find out that these people that the Butawi brothers, Doug and Steve, actually aren't working with that guy and don't have money, and they basically they're never really exclusively like going out with them, but they're like they I think they're considering it to get money basically, and they kind of like break it off with them, and then when that happens, Will Ferrell and Chris Kattan's character, Doug and Steve, essentially break up as well. But unlike a regular romantic comedy where they get the basically like the girlfriend goes back to the boyfriend goes back to the girlfriend, whatever it is, they just go back to each other. The two women that they hang out with earlier in the movie, it's Vivica and Cammy. You never see them again after that scene. So like they basically tell them off, they leave them on the street, and then you never see them again. And then the kind of relationship that gets fixed in a rom com is actually their relationship. It's kind of an interesting take on it. It's I think it's like because I remember like romantic comedies like basically always follow that same formula, and this did that as well, but it did it in a different kind of way. It kind of turned it on its head a little bit, which I thought was kind of cool. That's something I definitely noticed in one of the more recent times I watched it. It's on Paramount Plus if you want to watch it on streaming, but I also do have the DVD here. This is the special collector's edition. There's nothing really special about it that much. It has basically it's the movie widescreen, of course. It has score, reliving a night at the Roxbury, Roxbury rags, costumes and fashion guide, a do that dance featurette, and making the list, which is basically just about nightclubs and people and getting into nightclubs and how people like. There's the back of it. I remember there's like because there's a scene where somebody bribes Michael Clark Duncan with money, and then somebody they were kind of like be like, hey, would that happen in real life? And somebody was like, well, they were actually interviewing an actual bouncer, and he was like, well, that I wouldn't do that because if there's somebody that was not supposed to be in the club and they were in the club under my watch, I would get in trouble for that. So they were basically saying like how like to get into clubs kind of thing. It was like I said, the special features on the DVD aren't particularly good, but I do have it on DVD, so might need to pick it up on Blu-ray at some point. I was going to post this video earlier in this series, but one thing we're going to be doing at the end of this segment is I was actually most recently on a trip to LA, and I was staying in a hotel kind of near where a lot of the exterior shots for this movie were filmed. So I actually took screenshots of the movie before I went on this trip, and then took shots like on my phone of the exterior locations. So there's going to be like some of the club locations that you'll see, some of the stuff on the beach. I'll be going through like a slideshow, kind of describing what was there. I didn't get to do any of the interior stuff because those are just like people's houses that they probably rented out, or like sets and stuff like that. I didn't go into you obviously can't just go into any of those. And like one set, there's like don't even know if they actually filmed it there, but it's called the Sky Bar, and it's a kind of basically just like a rooftop bar in LA. But I don't really drink, and also I've read that like just to get into that bar is like $30, and that's before you're even like paying $20 for like a basic drink. So I didn't do that, and I know they show that bar in the movie, but I don't know if that was the actual Sky Bar or if it was just like a set they built because the scene is really brief. Let me just quick review here the notes here. Oh yeah, another great thing about this movie is the soundtrack. The soundtrack is basically a great dance album on its own. I have the soundtrack on CD. Let me actually bring up the soundtrack here. So the soundtrack released in 1998 as well. It's got 14 tracks on it. There's a couple songs in the movie that are not featured on the soundtrack. One is Bee Gees "Staying Alive," and I think the other one's called "Secret Garden" by Bruce Springsteen. It plays kind of toward the end of the movie once Doug and Steve are kind of back on the same page and back to back working together again. Anyhow, the soundtrack in this the soundtrack isn't in order of the movie. There's like one song, like the last song in the soundtrack is actually like a little earlier in the film, but anyway, you have Hadaway's "What Is Love." Basically, it's kind of a weird thing. Like, where would that song be without the movie? Like, I definitely feel that this movie propelled that song further than it would, but also where would the movie be without that song? It's kind of like a really interesting kind of take there. So you have "What Is Love." You have "Bamboo" with Bam Boogie, which is the radio edit of that. You have Rob's Club World, which is "Make That Money," which is the special remix for that. Cyndi Lauper, "Disco Inferno." Entrance featuring Rob Stewart, which is "Do You Think I'm Sexy?" That's a song that plays as they're kind of grooming themselves and getting ready to go out. You know, they're like putting on like their like hair gel and all that kind of stuff. So that was that one. We had "Third Party" with Pop Music, which plays during, there's like a scene where they're driving in a car and they're basically doing the Vogue thing. Like, I can't really do it, but they're doing it, but then they get pulled over by Jennifer Coolidge. So they get pulled over by Hottie Cop, as the character is called. We have "Faithless," which is the Insomnia Monster mix. I believe that is the song that plays as they're walking into the club that they're actually able to get into at the end of the movie, where they actually are on the list for that one because it's partially their club. You have to see the movie to get the thing because they do talk about how to get it basically a reverse club where there's the inside of the club is the outside and the outside is the inside. LaBouche, "Be My Lover," just a great dance song on its own. It came out like a couple years before the movie came out, maybe a few years before it. "Be My Lover," that was that one. We have Amber, "This Is Your Night," probably the song from the biggest dance scene in the movie where all four of the characters are dancing. So it's Doug, Steve, Canby, and Vivica are dancing to the song. It's like a really cool song, really cool dance scene as well. So that was that. We have Ace of Base, "Beautiful Life." It plays very briefly once they come up to the Roxbury, and Michael Clark Duncan kind of denies them entry the first time they're there. What else do we have? We have "No Mercy, Where Do You Go," which is the Ocean Drive mix, and I didn't know this at the time, and I didn't know this until a few years later, but that is actually a cover of a LaBouche song. I think it's off of their first album, but like No Mercy did this their own version of it, and that's what's on the soundtrack for this movie. And that plays once Doug and Steve are basically waking up the next day after not getting into the Roxbury, and it kind of plays before they have like they're doing the breakfast scene where they're like eating breakfast with Dan Hedaya and Lonnie Anderson. Speaking one other really good joke about the movie about Lonnie Anderson, she gets a new chin every year because she's like, oh, I got my, it's like, check out my new chin. Do you like it more than last year's chin? This is kind of like a funny, kind of like a funny joke. So in the Mercy, we have Jocelyn and Gracious, which is a little bit of ecstasy. Another, we have a remix of "What Is Love," which is the Refreshmento Extra Radio mix. And finally, we have Tamia's "Careless Whisper," and that kind of plays after Doug and Steve are kind of broken up, at least temporarily. That's going to do it for this part of the video. So this just classic comedy film, one of the better SNL movies, I think. Like this and like Wayne's World are like my top like two, I think. For probably Wayne's World is probably my top, and then this one is probably my second favorite movie based on SNL stuff. Coneheads is pretty good too. It's been a while since I've seen that one, but Night at the Roxbury, like I said, it's on Paramount Plus right now. It's definitely a fun movie. It's not long at all. It's like an hour and a half or something like that, maybe a little bit longer than that, but definitely it doesn't overstay its welcome. It is pretty fast, and it's a lot of fun. So definitely check it out. We're going to flip around and we're going to go through the shooting locations that I was able to kind of visit on this most recent trip out to LA. So we'll be right back with that. All right, and we are now back with the shooting location part of this video. So what I've done is I've taken screenshots from the movie, and basically it's in a slideshow. So and I've tried to keep these as close to the order that they appear in the film There might be like one or two locations that were used multiple times that I only have a capture of once in the slideshow. But basically, what it is, it's going to be a scene from the movie, and then the real world location of that movie as it exists today, basically. So, first scene of the film here, this is like the first exterior shot. This is after they get thrown out of the first club that they're in, and this is on most of this stuff is on Sunset Boulevard, so it's all very close to each other, pretty much. Even the stuff that wasn't on Sunset Boulevard is basically just like on like another street, like a few blocks away. But this is the Roxy nightclub. I forget what the club was called in the film or what they were using it for, but they get thrown out of this club, and it's right next to, you can see the sign there, the Rainbow Bar and Grill. So it says Bar and Grill, and then there is basically is the Roxy Theater, and in the next shot or next slide, it's going to be the real world version of this, and you can see how it's changed slightly. So now there's this larger banner, not larger banner, but this the bar and grill part of the sign is partly covered now by kind of like this pillar. But yeah, this would be kind of like where they're standing when they get thrown out of the club. So this is again the Rainbow Bar and Grill in Roxy Theater. We have another shot of it here, a little further back. So in that scene, Will Ferrell is kind of standing underneath that where that marquee would be. So that is again Rainbow Bar and Grill in the Roxy. This is the Roxbury from the film, and the location that they use for the Roxbury, you can kind of see the sign in the bottom corner there. It's basically just like a building or two down from the Roxy and Rainbow Bar and Grill. So this is the first part of the Roxbury that they show you. This is another view of it from a little bit different angle. And we're going to go to the real world location now. And this location has changed quite a bit. So the kind of red paneling is gone. There is some that I believe that kind of awning is still there, and the video screens that you saw in the previous shot are still there as well. But yeah, you can see the video screens are there, but that red paneling has been replaced by whatever that kind of like the off-white paneling that's there now. So that was used as the exterior of the Roxbury. Into our next shot here, we just have a wider shot of the entire area. So we have basically the Roxy Rainbow Bar and Grill and the Roxbury further down. Underneath that eyeball and the billboard is where the Roxbury would be. All right, next up, this is the fake plant store. So this is the one that's not directly on Sunset Boulevard, but basically, if you Sunset Boulevard's a weird kind of street because this is actually on it's like Hacienda something or other. It's like a block below, but if you follow this more westerly, it will actually connect to the Sunset later on. So this is the fake plant store from the corner. The reason I'm showing this is that this corner looks completely different now. So we have them entering there. There's another shot of it from a little more toward the front. So it's the Butabi Silk Garden. And right around the corner there, those blue areas are the Bright Idea lamp store. So that's where Molly Shannon's character works. So into our next shot, this is the real location of it now. So this is what it looks like now. That corner looks completely different. I think that was the most recently was a restaurant, but it's closed now. And that's the shot going further up the street. So this, I believe, is just if you go up the street or basically if you're on this corner and you go to the right, if you go back up to the right, you would get back to Sunset Boulevard, or you could actually just walk down the street and it will connect to Sunset later on. Here we have Molly Shannon talking to Will Ferrell and Chris Kattan. This is kind of outside of the lamp store. And then we'll get another shot of the lamp store here, so you get a better idea of what the street actually looks like. And then we're going to go into the straight down the store or the street shot here. The lamp store would kind of be in this area, and then the plant shop would be kind of around the corner from that. So into our next location here. This is what it looks like in the film. So this is the opposite. This is the opposite quarter. So this is the quarter heading the other direction, and this is the scene where I did it out of order because they stand on this corner at least in two different scenes. So there's this scene where they're getting ready to go to the gym, and there is this scene where they're going to meet up with Mr. Zadir for their meeting about their club. And that restaurant behind it, the Barney's Beanery, is still there. I didn't go into it, but that's still there. And here's the location as it looks now. The building's been repainted, but you can tell it's the same building because of that kind of that pipe on the side there, and Barney's Beanery right behind it. That's that location. We're now in Santa Monica. This is one of the only locations that's not on Sunset Boulevard, excluding kind of like interior or exterior, or sorry, yeah, interior building shots from like their house and like the clubs and stuff like that. So this is the Santa Monica Pier. They're just walking on the beach, talking about their ideas for their own nightclub and what have you. So that's that. And just a further back shot of the pier. And then this is the kind of same location as it looks now. This was taken on I think I took this on a Monday, so it's obviously there's not a lot of people on the beach at that time of day. And also, it was like pretty early in the morning at this time. There's that one. We have Will Ferrell. Just Will Ferrell is basically walking on the ocean side while Chris Kattan is closer inland. So we have that, and then there's just that's basically like where Will Ferrell would have been walking. Kind of, you can't really tell exactly where on the beach he was, but there's that. This is Chris Kattan talking to Will Ferrell here, and I had to track down what building that was behind him. The building has changed colors, but I was able to find it because of the little pathway in front of the building. It's kind of this like curved bridge that's still there, and that'll be in the next shot here. So yeah, there is the bridge and that building. Like I said, that building has been slightly modified. It's now blue instead of like an orangish color or whatever it was. But that bridge is still there. That's how I was able to kind of identify it. That's another angle of the same building. And then we have them on. This is a little bit further away from the pier where they were earlier, and then basically we are going to then switch into the last few scenes of the movie. So we have one more shot of the pier, I believe, and then we're going to go toward back to Sunset Boulevard and pick up the rest of the shots there. We'll be right back with that. All right, and now this is that same kind of location, a little further back from where we last saw them. So again, Santa Monica Pier in this shot here. And I think now we're going to be going back to the locations on Sunset Boulevard. So let's take a look. Oh, we got one more location of the pier. All right, and this is the location in from the film where this is after I believe they try to bribe their way into the Roxbury and don't have enough money. They're looking for an ATM because I think they're trying to get enough money to get into it. So this liquor store, Turner's Liquor, is still there. The Tower Video store is no longer there. I think it's a bank now. I think yeah, because it looks like it jumps over. The Turner's Liquor store, the sign has changed slightly. It doesn't. It no longer says select wines. It says like Rockstar Energy drinks, and we'll take a look at that right now. So yeah, here is the liquor store. You can see the signage has changed slightly. What else? That's that angle of it. We're going to go to a different angle here now. So I believe that Chase Bank is where that video store would have been if it was still there. Because they're driving past it looking for, like I said, looking for an ATM. And the Chris Kattan's like, hey, it's an ATM. And Will Ferrell's like, no, that's just a place where you drop off videos. So that would have been where that bank is. Another shot of the same location. And now we have here. This is the Sunset Tower, so this is further up on Sunset. This is where they basically go to pick up Vivica and Camby, and they're like, "Where's your car?" They're like, "Hey, our dad got mad and took it away." So this is basically Sunset Boulevard further up, and then you can kind of tell from the billboard there they filmed this in 1997. So there's that. Here is the same location now. It's a different billboard, of course. Some of the scenery has changed slightly, like some of the paint schemes are different, and some of the buildings are have some different features. But that is the exact location that they would be. Another location. So this is as they're walking back. You can kind of see the Comedy Store, which would be kind of this further down from them. So they're walking back into. Well, I think in the movie they said they were at the Sky Bar, but the Sky Bar is actually further down. It's like a little bit further away from where they actually are. So I think they were just using the outside of this is the Sunset Tower that they're walking into, and they were probably just using that as the Sky Bar entrance possibly. So they're walking back. That's kind of the area that they would be at if it was current. So basically, same area from like a slightly different angle. This is them back at the. This is the entrance to Sunset Tower. So we're gonna basically just head back inside. And there's the kind of the stairs. These have changed slightly. So those frosted glass things are no longer there, and the planters are slightly different now as well. So take a look at those. So yeah, there's the frosted glass things, and the planters. Looks like the planters are no longer planters unless they're like only planters in the summertime, maybe. But those have been replaced by that instead. And there's another angle of the entrance to the thing. They were going in there at some point. So yeah, it's a slightly. You can kind of tell it's the same area because of the metal curved railing there. And finally, this is them back on the corner there, underneath that billboard, and then we just have a slightly different angle of that right here. Basically, same location, but. And that is going to do it for this video. I had a lot of fun making this video just because I got to rewatch the movie, and then I got to go to a bunch of different like filming locations. So it was definitely a lot of fun making this particular video, and I was going to make this video before I went on this trip, and then I realized I'm like, let me actually just push this video back a little bit so I can, like have it be more fun. So that's going to do it for this video. Again, remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thanks again for watching, and take care.